Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Beyond the Farthest Star, Warriors of Xandar #4 from American Mythology. So this is part of their Edgar Rice Burroughs universe line of comics, and Edgar Rice Burroughs is, of course, the creator of Tarzan and John Carter, and American Mythology puts out comics based on his lesser-known works, like Beyond the Farthest Star, of course. And so we'll be taking a look at this. This stars Victory Harbin, who is a new character who is currently in the new novels being put out by Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated. And so this is the final issue of this 4-issue miniseries. And so let's start with the cover. This is by the interior artist Alessandro Rinaldi, and I love this. This is probably my favorite cover, and I just love it because it's just, these heroic poses for all our heroes, and it just looks great. I love, Victory Harbin up front with her gun out, ready for action, and just all of the poses and the rendering and the colors too are just really great. I just think this is a really cool cover. It really tells you, hey, this is a science fiction action kind of comic, and I like it. One thing I do want to point out is that the coloring for the cover did change kind of dramatically between how it was solicited and how it was published. So it's published as a night scene, with the night in the background, and it was colored in daytime, with, you can actually see a planet in the background, which I think is way, way better. I would have preferred it that way. And if you want this as a painting, you can actually order it and it'll look just like this on iCanvas. The interior artwork at times is quite good. I love the way he renders the characters when he fully renders them. But then there's a lot of scenes in here that just feel like they have less detail and just aren't quite as fully rendered as normal. This panel in particular is a good example of that. It almost feels like I'm looking at layouts. That being said, the layouts are exceptional, and even if the artwork is a bit less detailed, the storytelling and the kinetic action and style are definitely still there. And as you can probably tell, this issue is basically a big final battle. It's a lot of action, a little bit less depth than previous issues, but there's still some intriguing things that are teased. So like all of their Burroughs miniseries, this is very serialized. There is a good synopsis for what happened in previous issues at the beginning, but it is advised to get all the previous issues and read those first. It's a good miniseries. I really like it. It has Victory Harbin inexplicably transported to this other planet named Xandar, and she gets involved with the conflicts of the natives on this planet. And it's just really great. It's in the tradition of characters like John Carter, and it really has that feel of those early Mars stories, and I just love it. So while the miniseries is good, the last issue is a little bit sad because this is the final issue that Mike Wolfer wrote of this property before he left American Mythology. He was the editor, he also did design work, and he also wrote the Burroughs titles. And so, as far as I can tell, for the most part, it is printed as it would have been if he'd been there, except for this first page. It is actually cut off on the side. You can see this word balloon is actually cut off. Thank goodness that's the only bit of dialogue we miss because of this mistake, but you can see this little symbol right here. That is something you should never see on a printed comic book page. This should be on the margins that are outside of the copy area. What appears to have happened, none of the other pages that are on this sheet are off, right? All these other pages printed just fine. This is on the back of that same sheet. What looks like happened, it's not that the plate slipped when it printed. It looks like something happened when they were laying it out in the layout program that they use. Probably PDF was laid into the picture box and it just ended up being a few, like maybe an inch off or so, and that caused it to be cut off. It's tough when you're transitioning, right? When you're getting new people in to do stuff that someone else normally did. Sometimes mistakes happen. I've never seen this in a comic book before. Heck, maybe it'll make it a more valuable collector's item, I will throw in the caveat that I'm not sure who does the final page layout in this instance, whether that's the publisher or the printer. I have read that you're supposed to be able to get a proof before it goes to final print, but regardless, it's just kind of a shame that it was missed. And so in the back is a preview of another Beyond the Farthest Star miniseries they're putting out called Beyond the Farthest Star Chronicles. First issue's already out. I've already done a review of it. And the second issue should be coming out next month, and that should conclude it. This is reprints of 1970s backup stories of Beyond the Farthest Star that DC put out. And I just want to apologize because in my review I did talk about this cover, but I didn't research who did the art for it. I just assumed that this was somebody they hired like normal for these reprint covers. However, this is actually a historic piece of art from famous Burroughs artist named Roy Crinkle. This was an interior piece he did for Beyond the Farthest Star, but it just shows how different these reprint miniseries are, because normally this would be a variant cover, right? You can imagine someone wanting this, even though it may not have much to do with the interior, but wanting this as a collector's item. But this just ended up being the only cover that they had. And I went into this in my review of this comic, but the reprinting is not as smooth as it used to be. It just doesn't look as nice as it has in previous reprint miniseries. And unfortunately, this is across the board for American mythology. I looked at the Zorro reprint comic they had on the shelf at my comic shop, and it was the same deal, even though that was printed in the 90s. That's a shame, but I still would recommend picking these up if you're at all interested in the subject matter, because believe me, this is a lot easier and a lot cheaper than hunting those old comics down that had these as backup stories. And on the back of the issue, we have an ad for Ploustar Across Savage Seas #4, which I'm also going to be reviewing today because it did come out this week. But there is no tease for what happens next. I will say that there are definitely teases for where they would go if they continue with this story. However, there's no plug for the Victory Harbin novel in this particular miniseries. There's no mention of it here. There is a plug, however, in the sister series. This leads me to believe that all the teases that we're having, all the hints about where we would go with Beyond the Farthest Star and Victory Harbin in this miniseries are probably intended to be further stories that would be told in future miniseries. Burroughs' titles from American mythology are never just one-off miniseries. They're always intended to be ongoing stories that would build on top of each other with each successive miniseries. Will we see those miniseries now that Mike Wolfer has left? I don't know. Traditionally in comic books, when someone leaves, oftentimes the next writer or next creative team will do something completely different. Or perhaps they could try to pick up on whatever he intended. I don't know. Or it's entirely possible maybe there simply won't be another miniseries following up on this. I hope that's not the case, but we don't have any announcements of anything in the future. There's no like to be continued in such and such at the end of this. So we don't know where this is going after they go through the remaining Mike Wolfer scripts. There's still a couple issues left of Monster Men, and then that'll be it. We just don't know. You know, there's been nothing announced for what would be the next miniseries, if any, in their Edgar Rice Burroughs line. I hope they continue. I hope this continues. I love these characters. I love Hucklebuck especially. I mean, I think he's the breakout star here. Her little pet companion, who's sometimes not so little. I think I would definitely love to see Victory and Hucklebuck in future adventures in comic book form. All right, that's it. Like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, see ya.